Ladies and gentlemen, consciousness, the very essence of our existence, the most profound mystery and yet the most intimate experience we possess. We sit here reading these words, aware of our thoughts, our emotions, our surroundings. We are conscious, but have we ever truly stopped to ask, what is consciousness? Is it simply a byproduct of the brain, or is it something far more profound, something beyond the physical? Today we delve into the heart of this mystery. It is often said that consciousness is a miracle, a gift bestowed upon us. But if we look deeper, we may realize that it is not a miracle in the sense that it was granted by an external force, but that it is a miracle in itself, a phenomenon that arises from the most intricate of processes within the body and the universe. And yet, despite centuries of study, we still do not fully understand it. When we approach consciousness with this sense of wonder, we must first acknowledge that it is not merely the functioning of our brain or our mind. It is not just about neurons firing or synapses connecting. Consciousness is not something that can be confined to a single explanation, a singular event or process. It is a dynamic, flowing, living experience that shapes our reality and our perception of the world. The fact that we are conscious at all is extraordinary. The fact that we can reflect on our existence, question it, and even attempt to understand it is nothing short of a miracle. It is this quality that makes us human, and it is this quality that opens us to the vastness of the cosmos. Consciousness connects us to something far greater than ourselves. It is not just a biological phenomenon, it is the bridge between the material and the spiritual, between the finite and the infinite. As we seek to understand consciousness, we must also remember that its true nature is elusive. We can study the brain, observe its activity and measure its responses. But understanding the mind itself, the subjective experience of being, the sense of I, remains a mystery. Perhaps the greatest paradox of consciousness is that we can never fully know it from the outside. It is an experience that must be lived, felt and embodied. It is a miracle precisely because it transcends the limitations of logic and reason. It exists not to be solved, but to be embraced and experienced. Consciousness is not a thing. It is not an object we can study in isolation. It is an unfolding, an exploration of the inner and outer dimensions of life. And in that exploration, we discover the depth of who we are and our connection to the world around us. So, is consciousness a miracle? Yes. But the miracle lies not in the fact that it exists, but in the fact that it continues to elude our grasp, forever calling us to go deeper, to ask more questions, and to awaken to the infinite possibilities that lie within and beyond our own minds. Consciousness is the most intimate and profound aspect of our experience. It is the awareness we carry with us every moment of our lives, the sense that we exist, that we think, that we feel, and that we are connected to the world around us. But despite being so integral to our existence, it remains one of the greatest mysteries that humanity has yet to understand. We often talk about consciousness as if it is a singular thing, something that can be neatly defined and understood. However, consciousness is not a static entity, it is dynamic, evolving and deeply subjective. It is not merely the sum of mental processes or the firing of neurons in our brain. While science has made great strides in mapping the brain's activity, it has yet to explain how or why this activity gives rise to the rich inner world of experience that each of us has. We can observe brain waves, but we cannot capture the feeling of joy, the experience of pain or the depth of thought that arises from them. Consciousness is not simply an output of physical processes, it is a state of being, an experience that eludes direct observation and is deeply personal. What makes this even more puzzling is that we are, in a sense, both the observer and the observed. We are aware of our own awareness, capable of reflecting on our thoughts and feelings, and even questioning the very nature of our existence. This self-reflection, this ability to step outside of ourselves and examine our own consciousness is what sets us apart from most other living beings. While we can study the brain from the outside, we cannot directly study consciousness from an external perspective. It must be lived, felt and experienced from within. We cannot place it under a microscope or dissect it like a physical object, and therein lies its mystery. Moreover, consciousness is not confined to the present moment alone. It stretches across time, shaping our memories of the past, our understanding of the present, and our hopes for the future. We carry our past experiences with us as we move forward, and our awareness is influenced by our anticipation of what may come. In this way, consciousness is not just about what is happening in the here and now, but also about how we interpret and navigate our own stories through time. Despite these complexities, the fact that we are conscious at all is extraordinary. The sheer fact that we experience life, perceive the world, and form thoughts is in itself an awe-inspiring phenomenon. We tend to take this experience for granted, assuming it is simply part of the natural order of things. Yet, when we truly pause and consider the vastness and intricacy of consciousness, it becomes clear that it is no small feat. It is an ongoing mystery, an unfolding process, and the very fabric of what it means to be alive. Consciousness is a phenomenon that cannot be reduced to simple explanations. It is not a static object waiting to be understood. It is a fluid and ever-changing experience, something that resists being pinned down. It is a miracle, not in the sense of being a supernatural gift, but in the sense that it arises from a complexity far beyond our comprehension. Consciousness invites us to delve deeper, to explore not just the external world, but the internal landscape of our own minds and hearts. It is a journey of discovery, one that continues to unfold with each passing moment, full of mystery and wonder. Consciousness is often referred to as a miracle, but not in the way we typically think of miracles, like events that defy natural laws or transcend the realm of possibility. Instead, it is a miracle because of its very existence, its ability to emerge from the complex web of physical processes and become something profoundly subjective and deeply personal. It is a marvel that something as abstract as awareness can arise from the material components of the brain and body. The fact that we are conscious at all, capable of feeling, perceiving, and thinking is extraordinary, considering the vastness of the universe and the intricate, mysterious processes that make it possible. If we look at consciousness from a scientific perspective, it is tempting to reduce it to a product of the brain's intricate workings. The firing of neurons, the release of chemicals, the activation of specific regions in response to stimuli, these are all measurable phenomena, and they certainly play a role in how we experience the world. Yet despite understanding these processes, we still do not know how or why these physical events give rise to the rich, vivid tapestry of conscious experience. We understand how the brain functions on a certain level, but the leap from brain activity to conscious awareness remains an unsolved puzzle. What makes this even more miraculous is that consciousness is not a simple passive state. It is active. It is not just a matter of being awake or aware of our surroundings, it is about the subjective experience, the thoughts, emotions and sensations that fill our mind, the sense of I that we carry with us. We do not merely perceive the world around us, we interpret it, we evaluate it, we give it meaning. Our conscious minds are constantly engaged in a dynamic process of reflection, analysis and self-awareness. The fact that our minds can reflect on themselves, that we can step outside of our own experience and contemplate the nature of our existence, is a miraculous feature of consciousness. This miracle is made even more profound when we consider how fleeting and fragile it is. Consciousness is not a permanent state. It can be altered by changes in the brain, trauma, illness, or even simply the passage of time. In sleep, for example, we lose our conscious awareness, entering into a state where the experience of self and the external world fades away. Yet even in sleep, there is still an undercurrent of awareness that remains, the continuity of consciousness which allows us to awaken, remember and resume our sense of self. This continuity, this ability to return to awareness after periods of absence is yet another aspect of consciousness that seems to transcend the limitations of the physical world. What makes consciousness truly miraculous is not just that it exists, but that it allows us to experience the world in such a rich and multifaceted way. We see beauty, we feel joy, we form relationships, and we experience the depths of pain and loss. These are not mere responses to external stimuli, they are deeply internal experiences that shape our perception of reality. Consciousness is not just about receiving information, it is about engaging with the world in a way that is infused with meaning and emotion. We connect to the world not merely through our senses, but through the interpretative, reflective lens of our conscious mind. Furthermore, consciousness gives us the ability to ask profound questions about the nature of existence, the universe, and our place within it. It enables us to explore the deepest questions of life, to ask, why am I here? And what is the purpose of this existence? It is this awareness of our own awareness that creates the possibility of transcendence, growth, and transformation. In this way, consciousness becomes a bridge not just to the external world, but to the deepest recesses of our inner lives and the boundless mysteries of the universe. The miracle of consciousness is that it allows us to be both a part of the world and separate from it at the same time. It allows us to experience the fullness of life, the joy, the sorrow, the beauty, and the pain, and yet, somehow, it also gives us the ability to step back and observe it all. This dual nature of consciousness, where we are both immersed in life and able to reflect upon it, is what makes it so extraordinary. It is not just a biological phenomenon, it is a profound and mysterious force that connects us to the very heart of existence. The common understanding of consciousness is often grounded in the physical processes of the brain. It is easy to assume that consciousness is simply the product of neurons firing, electrical impulses traveling through synapses, and chemical reactions happening within the grey matter of our skull. This biological perspective is useful, but it is also limited. While science can map the brain's activity and identify patterns that correlate with different states of awareness, it cannot fully explain how the experience of being conscious, our awareness of self, our thoughts, and our perceptions arises from these processes. Consciousness seems to transcend the purely physical workings of the brain, pointing to something beyond the material realm. To truly understand consciousness, we must move beyond the confines of the brain alone. The experience of being conscious is not merely a reflection of what is happening inside our skulls. It is an interaction between the internal and the external. The brain is part of the equation, certainly, but it is only a conduit for a far greater phenomenon. The senses, the mind, and the body all play a role in shaping our awareness of the world. Consciousness is not confined to the brain as a separate, isolated organ. It is an intricate dance between the brain, the body, and the environment. Consider, for example, the way consciousness is informed by our bodily sensations. Every thought, every emotion, and every decision is intricately tied to the physical state of our body. The brain processes signals from the body, and those sensations, whether they are hunger, fatigue, joy, or pain, contribute to our awareness. But this exchange goes both ways. Consciousness is not just a passive recipient of sensory data, it is an active participant in the world, shaped by the way we experience our own bodies. Our perception of reality is influenced by the physical sensations we experience, which then feed into our thoughts, emotions, and deeper awareness of our existence. Furthermore, the environment plays a profound role in shaping our consciousness. The world around us does not merely act as a backdrop for our thoughts, it is an integral part of how we experience life. The colors we see, the sounds we hear, the people we interact with, all of these elements are woven into the fabric of our conscious experience. The external world is not a passive observer of our minds, it actively shapes the very nature of our awareness. The way we interpret and engage with the world is, in many ways, just as significant as the processes happening inside our heads. Additionally, consciousness seems to reach beyond the confines of the brain and body into the realms of the abstract. Human consciousness is not solely concerned with immediate survival or the physical world. We engage in deep, reflective thinking, pondering abstract concepts like love, morality, beauty, and meaning. These are not qualities that can be easily explained by biology or brain chemistry alone. Our ability to imagine future possibilities, to reflect on past experiences, and to construct complex ideas about the world and the universe speaks to a level of awareness that extends far beyond the purely physical. It suggests that consciousness is more than the sum of its neural activity, it is a force that engages with the abstract, the conceptual, and the spiritual. In many ways, consciousness also exists as a bridge between the individual and the collective. While each person experiences their own unique consciousness, there is a shared quality to human awareness that transcends individual minds. We communicate, we connect, and we share experiences that go beyond the isolated confines of our own perceptions. This shared consciousness allows us to collaborate, create and empathize with others, building a sense of collective understanding and a deeper connection to humanity as a whole. It suggests that consciousness is not an isolated phenomenon confined to each individual mind, but part of a greater, interconnected fabric that extends beyond the self. Finally, consciousness reaches beyond the realm of the material altogether. It touches upon the profound mysteries of existence, questions of meaning, purpose and our place in the universe. The sense of I, that awareness of one's own self, is not just a product of brain activity. It is an experience that connects us to something much larger. It is as if our conscious awareness has the capacity to reach beyond the physical boundaries of our body, tapping into something infinite, something beyond space and time. Whether one views this as a spiritual connection or simply as an acknowledgement of the vastness of existence, it points to the idea that consciousness is not confined to the limits of our biology or our brain. It extends into the very fabric of the universe, touching upon dimensions that are beyond our current understanding. This understanding of consciousness beyond the brain, beyond the material world, challenges the traditional view that it is merely a product of physical processes. It suggests that consciousness is not just something that happens within the confines of our skull, but something that connects us to a larger, more mysterious reality. It is as though consciousness in all its complexity has the ability to transcend the boundaries of the body and mind, linking us to a broader experience of existence that cannot be fully captured or explained by science alone. Science has made remarkable strides in explaining the natural world, from the microscopic workings of cells to the vast expanse of the universe. Through observation, experimentation and theory, it has provided a wealth of knowledge about how things work. Yet, when it comes to consciousness, science encounters a profound limitation. While it can map brain activity, measure electrical impulses and observe patterns of thought and emotion, it cannot fully explain the subjective experience of being conscious, the feeling of I am. It is one thing to describe how the brain functions, but it is another to account for how this activity gives rise to the rich, personal and vivid experience of awareness that each individual has. The difficulty arises because consciousness is inherently subjective. It is not something that can be objectively measured or observed in the same way we observe physical phenomena. Science is equipped to measure physical data, temperature, pressure, light and sound waves, but consciousness exists in the realm of inner experience. How does a collection of neurons firing translate into the sensation of seeing a sunset, the feeling of love, or the awareness of oneself as a distinct being? These experiences are deeply personal and cannot be quantified or analyzed through the same methods that apply to the physical world. The very nature of consciousness resists being pinned down to objective measures. One of the central limitations of science in understanding consciousness lies in what is often called the hard problem of consciousness, a term coined by philosopher David Chalmers. This problem asks how and why subjective experience arises from the physical processes of the brain. Science can tell us which areas of the brain are active during certain experiences such as pleasure, pain or thought, but it cannot explain why these processes should be accompanied by an internal, qualitative experience. The firing of neurons, in other words, does not inherently tell us why it feels like something to experience the color red or to hear a particular piece of music. There is no obvious connection between physical processes and the richness of inner experience. The subjective nature of consciousness defies the reductionist approach that science often employs to break down phenomena into smaller, more manageable parts. Another limitation is the inability of science to account for the full depth and breadth of consciousness. While modern neuroscience has made tremendous advances in mapping the brain and understanding its various functions, it has yet to uncover the full complexity of consciousness itself. Consciousness is not just about perception and thought, it is about emotions, intuition, self-reflection, and even the sense of a transcendent experience. Science, while incredibly effective at dissecting biological systems, often overlooks or struggles to explain the deeper, more nuanced aspects of consciousness. How do we account for states like creativity, insight, or moments of profound spiritual awakening? These experiences do not fit neatly into the framework of biological explanation. They go beyond the measurable, extending into areas of human experience that science cannot easily quantify or categorize. Furthermore, the study of consciousness is limited by the very tools that are used to examine it. Scientific instruments are designed to observe the external world, to measure physical objects, energy and behavior, but the experience of consciousness is internal, not something we can place under a microscope or observe from the outside. Neuroscientists can study brain activity, but they cannot experience the thoughts, sensations or emotions of the individuals they study. This creates a fundamental divide between the objective methods of science and the subjective nature of consciousness. Science can explore the biological correlates of consciousness, but it cannot directly access or explain the first-person experience of being conscious. In this sense, science's ability to explain consciousness is inherently limited by the nature of what it seeks to understand. Moreover, science operates within the realm of causality, seeking clear cause and effect relationships. But consciousness, with its mysterious and fluid qualities, does not always fit within these boundaries. While the brain's activity can be linked to certain behaviors or experiences, the relationship between physical processes and conscious awareness is not always straightforward. Consciousness, in its depth, complexity and variability, does not always obey the rules of simple causality. This makes it resistant to scientific models that rely on linear, predictable patterns. Finally, science often seeks to reduce phenomena to simpler components, operating on the assumption that understanding the smaller parts will explain the whole. This reductionist approach has proven incredibly successful in many areas, such as understanding how cells function or how the planets orbit the sun. But consciousness, by its very nature, cannot be reduced in this way. The subjective experience of consciousness, how it feels to be alive, to think, to dream, to love, is more than the sum of its physical components. It is not something that can be entirely explained by looking at individual neurons or brain regions in isolation. Consciousness emerges from the dynamic interaction of countless factors, including biology, environment and personal history. This complexity defies reduction and challenges the assumption that all phenomena can be explained by breaking them down into simpler elements. These limitations do not diminish the value or the power of science, but they highlight the boundaries of its reach when it comes to understanding consciousness. Science excels at describing the physical world, but it is not equipped to fully grasp the inner subjective realm of experience that defines what it means to be conscious. Consciousness exists as something more than the sum of its parts, and to fully understand it, we may need to look beyond the methods and tools of science, considering other ways of knowing and experiencing the world. In the end, consciousness remains both a profound mystery and a unique gift. Despite the remarkable advancements of science, it continues to elude full explanation, inviting us to explore it not just with our minds, but with our hearts and our lived experiences. It challenges us to question the very nature of reality, of existence and of ourselves. Perhaps the most extraordinary aspect of consciousness is that it is not something to be understood solely through observation or analysis. It must be lived, felt and embraced. As we stand at the intersection of science and the unknown, we are reminded that consciousness is not a problem to be solved, but a phenomenon to be experienced. In this vast universe where so much remains beyond our grasp, the miracle of consciousness is that we have the capacity to question, to reflect, and to connect with the deeper mysteries of life. It invites us to be present, to be aware, and to recognize the profound interconnectedness of all things. While science continues its pursuit, perhaps we too should embark on our own journey, a journey not of finding definitive answers, but of deepening our understanding and appreciation of this miracle that is consciousness. In doing so, we may come to realize that the greatest insight is not in knowing, but in being. Consciousness, after all, is not just something we have, it's something we are.